All right, welcome back. So now we're going to take a look at creating a lead patch. And the purpose of the lead patch is to expand on what we've done so far with subtractive synthesis, but we're going to use multiple oscillators, slightly detuned, so that we're going to get a sound that really kind of cuts through the mix in any given genre of music. So to start with that, what we're going to do is we're going to create a patch that's very similar to our standard subtractive. We're going to have an envelope generator going to an ADSR, and we're going to have a filter, but we're going to get a little bit more complicated with two VCOs. So I'm going to start by resetting my filters, and I'm going to search for an oscillator. And with that, there's quite a few of these, but I'm going to use the Befico even VCO. And in fact, I'm going to use two of those, so I'm just going to select it and hit Command D to duplicate it. Now, since your assignments are going to require you to use all sorts of new modules, I do encourage you to do this yourself and then to find different modules as well. So we need a envelope generator. So let's go to our tags and we're going to find envelope generator. And I'm going to use the VC ADSR. Then I'm going to use one envelope generator to trigger the sound of both oscillators. So instead of using an amplifier, I'm going to use a mixer. And I'm going to search. We're going to find a mixer under tags. And I've got this this guy right here, looks cool, the VCA Mix 4 from Venom Audio. Then last but not least, I need to have this going to a filter. So I'm going to search for a filter. And I will look and let's use the Bog Audio filter. That's always a classic. Then we'll leave some extra space in case we decide to add anything else for effects. All right, so first and foremost, I need to connect volts per octave to both oscillators. So I'm going to connect the first one, hold down Command, and connect it to the volts per octave input of the second one. Then I'm going to use gate to trigger the envelope generator. I'm going to kind of pump my sustain up a little bit, and that should be pretty good. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect both of these oscillators to my mixer. So they're going to go into the input channels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try the sawtooth to the input and this other sawtooth there. And then here I have individual channel outputs, or if they're chained, I can take the summed output from the mix. So I'm going to connect the mix up there. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to show you what we're going to do with the oscillators. So if I grab a copy by holding down Command, I'm going to take that into input 1 and input 2. And they should be basically the same thing. And they are. But what we're going to do is we're going to slightly detune these. So I'm going to take this down to a different octave, and you can see that we've got different phases because we have different frequencies. If I take them down here, then they're the same. And I can even give it a hard sync if I really want to, which would force them to actually be in sync. I honestly don't really need to, though, because what we're going to do is we're going to play around with the detuning. I'm going to take this knob up, and we're just going to get a little bit out of tune. And so now you can see that the purple and the blue are coming in and out of phase in interesting ways. And that is really the secret of creating the lead patch. Now, with this, the other thing we can do is, if we really want to have some fun, we're going to take the output of our ADSR and we're going to connect it to the two individual channel levels. Then I'm going to take the output and I'm going to connect that to device of audio 8 for channel 1, hold down Command and do that for channel 2, and we should have some sound. And that's why I did choose this filter in advance, because this one has multiple modes. I'm currently set to low pass, but it's also got a much higher frequency cutoff than the built-in VCV filter has. Now, there is one other thing that I'm going to do here, which is I'm going to have a little bit of fun with the filter. So I currently have my ADSR controlling the mixer levels, but I can also connect another copy of that to the cutoff frequency via this CV knob. So now, nothing's happening yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this CV attenuator and bring that up a little bit. And then we'll take this down to a lower frequency and give it more of an attack time so you can hear it. And at that point, you can hear how it's sweeping the filter cutoff up. I can even make it more extreme. Or I could even invert it. So we'll just reset that to about 5K. And then I'm going to invert the filter, so it's going to sweep down. Which it's happening so quickly that we're losing all frequencies, so I might take that down to a smaller percent. Here's 9%. But honestly, I'm not really a fan of that. I might open it up even more. And then we'll increase the resonance. And that gives me just kind of a cool filter sweep there as well. I could also take this down even more dramatically. And open that up and use that as a control for the envelope to modulate that cutoff frequency. Then, of course, I could add any type of effect that I wanted. So I'm going to move this scope out of the way. And let's try, how about a delay? So let's go to a delay. And there's a couple of really, really cool delays that are available. I'm a big fan of the Chrono Blob 2 delay. So I'm going to connect that up to a left and a right, and then I'm going to take a left output to device 1 and right to device 2. And that just sounds really cool. This is a really fun delay to play around with, and if you play around with it, there's a lot of cool things for the loop parameters, for the sync pre-scaling. This is one that you do want to definitely go to the info and take a look at the actual user manual. It's pretty complex, but has some cool options. And that can be used with just a little bit of dry wet and some careful feedback controls. To create an interesting pad. The other thing you can do is, of course, go with one of the classics like reverb, and for something like that, I would recommend trying Freeverb. which is just a great algorithm that's very commonly used. And in fact, we will be exploring that quite a bit in some of the other classes that I teach. So there's the size. We'll take the mix all the way down. But it just sounds really good, and it's really cool to use. So that is how to create a basic lead patch. Again, have fun with this, and remember that for your assignment, you do have to use all different modules. So experiment and have fun.